Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 87 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, October 22nd, and we've got a playoff-bound Effingham High School football team to talk about. In fact, a playoff-bound Effingham team that's going to actually get to face a very familiar opponent in the first round of the playoffs, and we're going to talk about that. We're gonna hit on their win over Centralia this week, and we're going to talk about that first round playoff matchup. But first, we're gonna hit on a couple of other things around the area, things that we can't speak as intelligently about, but we know that they're happening more or less. The IHSA.
You left that wide open when you say we can't speak intelligently about it. That's a lot of things, Marty.
Things that we can, I mean, really, if you want to get right down to it, things we can speak even less intelligently about. But the volleyball regionals begin this week across the state, so that's one thing. And then girls tennis wrapped up, and I know that Totopoulos had an especially nice little finish to the season there in upstate Illinois. You know, they have that girls tennis tournament up there in the Chicagoland area just in time for the weather to have gone down the toilet. And I assume that this weekend was no different. I didn't really look at the weather up there, but probably not as bad as it has been.
Saw Facebook pictures of a lot of fans with blankets.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little cooler here, but not terrible even in the evenings. But
Well, and it was breezy, so but they're used to it. That's how it always is.
it was T-Town as a team in the 1A girls tennis tournament finished in a ninth place tie, which is, that's it's you get one nice little run from an individual or a doubles team, and you can usually get yourself a pretty good team finish. And in this case, senior Olivia Hemman and sophomore Anna Prupst had a good showing on the double side of things, especially. Not that everybody didn't have a good showing, but they won a couple matches, then dropped to the consolation, won another, I think, in the
got beat in the consolation semifinals.
Yeah. So winning the consolation final would constitute fifth place, which means that if you lose in the semifinals, that you're what, like a top 7-8 team?
Top 8, 7-8. You're 7-8 team.
So they they what are you going to do? You go up there, and in my limited understanding of state tennis is that once you get to that level of play, you win much more than a match or two. You've really done something for a player from our area.
Well, a lot when they're single A, you look at the schools they play.
Right.
A lot of big schools.
Yeah, I mean,
it's only single A, because it used to be one class and they went to two, and I thought, oh, that's going to help schools around here. Yeah, maybe, but not really, because you're still playing some pretty big schools.
Yeah, I mean, you can't consistently play those kind of, it's the powerhouses in that and I guess you call it the small school tennis, they tend to be your Metro East or your Chicago area schools, private schools typically. And it's hard to play them a lot. Like you can't just go and play most of those schools on a Tuesday afternoon. Like sometimes you get into tournaments on the weekend, which I know some of our local teams do, and go play some pretty good competition. But it's hard to replicate just the kind of relentless stream of really, really high quality players that you're going to run into once you get out of the sectionals. But T-Town, right. I'm just looking, and again, it's just. I
guess they got 10th. They tied for 10th, but like Lyle Bennett Academy, Dunlop, Elmhurst Timothy Christian, Danville, Highland. These are teams that were ahead of them. So generally 3A, when you think around here of basketball, mostly 3A schools.
Yeah.
Hinsdale South. So that's a good showing.
You also, a couple, I wanted to also point out that it looks like the team of the sophomore duo of Kinkler and Link from St. Anthony got looks like they got a couple of wins before dropping into
St.
the
Anthony finished 16th as a team.
yeah.
Kudos to them. They ended up with 8 points. T-Town had 10. So really, one more, well, two consolation wins. But no, that's good for the area. I think those teams finished 1-2 in the sectional. So
Yeah.
we usually have pretty good showing of girls tennis from here. So that
that Kinkler and Link duo, they won a couple on the winner's side, and they won in the first, second round, dropped the consolation and got another win before they eventually dropped, as if I'm reading these brackets right anyway. So that's hey, that's it's tough to do. So volleyball.
soccer.
Oh, soccer,
Real quick.
yeah.
St. Anthony. Totopolis won their sectional match. Another penalty kick. So that's 2 regional championship with the PK, and the first round of the sectional with the PK. So they're playing for a sectional championship Tuesday night, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, they're
They're at
Effingham,
Williamsville, I think, playing the host school.
I know Effingham did not win a regional, but their season did conclude with
Right. Had a
they
very
had,
successful season.
yeah, they won as many games they ever have before,
School record.
So
record.
that's and especially we talked about this last week, that they're coming off of a season where they only won a couple of games, and so it's a good turnaround, good turnaround for the program, and hopefully that hopefully it becomes a trend. Hopefully they're headed in.
I think that's good. It's always good when your athletic teams, like our very first guest said, we're blessed to have good teams in the area, and here we got a football team in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
We got 2 tennis teams perform well. We're probably going to have a volleyball team make a deep run. It's just kind of fun.
I mean, so let's talk about that volleyball, because the National Trail Conference has got 3 teams in particular that seem like any of them could, potentially
make a deep run.
Yeah, and potentially 2 of them could make a deep run. When we talked about this a little bit too, with St. Anthony or North Clay coming out of one sectional, and then Windsor Stu Straws is hosting its own, and they wouldn't cross paths until very far down the road, the teams that come out of those sectionals. I know that St. Anthony and North Clay are both trying to get into the Nokomis sectional, and Windsor Stu Straws, of course, is hosting its own. But yeah, the just looking first at St. Anthony and North Clay, they're both at the St. Elmo regional. And North Clay, this is interesting to me, and of course
they're the same regional.
They're in the same regional, yeah. And North Clay's the higher seed. I don't know when the seeding was done, but North Clay lost to St. Anthony in the regular season and lost to St. Anthony in the gold flight of the National Trail Tournament, but yet pulled the number 2 seed on their side of the sectional. St. Anthony got the 3. So North Clay is the highest seeded team in that North Clay regional, which means they get a first round bye. So the quarterfinals start tomorrow. Altamont and St. Elmo play. That's a 9 and 10. One of them will face North Clay in the semifinals. North Clay handled both of those teams during the season, although both matches were, I mean, I guess handled was probably the wrong word, but defeated both of them. Right. And meanwhile, St. Anthony is playing Patoka in the quarterfinals. They played them during the regular season and beat them 25-17 in both games. And they'll play either South Central or CHBC in the other semifinal if they can beat Patoka.
Right. So if all goes according to Hoyle, we should have an all NTC final.
It would appear so. I'm going to assume that South Central, I shouldn't assume anything. If South Central beats CHBC, they would and if St. Anthony beats Patoka, they would be playing for the first time since the first day of the season. St. Anthony and South Central played their first match of the year against each other. St. Anthony won it pretty, let's see, 25-22, 25-21. But again, that was on August 24th. So
Right.
a million years ago, pretty much. But again, if North Clay and St. Anthony were to square off in the championship game, that's a match that St. Anthony's already won a couple of times, even though they're the lower seed. I think you'd kind of have to favor them. You know what I'm saying? But who knows? Tough to beat a good team 3 times. That's the old cliche, isn't it? And
Yeah.
maybe that's the case with North Clay. And both teams having a fantastic season. North Clay 27-8, St. Anthony 22-6. Meanwhile, Windsor Stew Straws is playing in the Oka Valley Regional. They're the top seed there and a number 2 seed in that in their half of the sectional. They're 30-5 on the year, if I didn't already say that. And they are going to get a first round bye and play either Oka Valley or Diedrich in the first round there. Chrisman would be again, if it goes by chalk, the team that might be waiting for them in a potential championship game if it comes to seeds. Neoga's in there too, but Neoga's pretty high seed. Diedrich's a 9 seed in that field. They could potentially play.
Well, and the thing about Windsor Stew Straws, their kids have all been down this road. There's not going to be that shock and awe sometimes that your company's a team getting to a regional final in the sport for the first time in a while. So, you know,
Effingham,
I would think they'd do a pretty good job.
And Effingham also going to be, they're a top seed in their own regional.
Yeah.
They're hosting. They don't have to play till Tuesday. They'll play either Charleston or Mattoon in that regional semifinal on Tuesday, and they beat both of those teams every time they played them during the regular season. So it seems to be that Bethalto's Civic Memorial would be the team that they would face in a championship game if everything went by.
Scoring the Hoyle. Okay.
Yep, Effingham 24-11 on the year, so also having a fantastic year. So yeah, I think you got 3 teams, 3 or 4 teams from the area could potentially,
win regional. Sure.
Potentially, you'd like to think that you could have 3 or 4 teams from the area, still 3 teams from the area playing in sectionals next week, which Effingham is trying to get to it looks like the Mascoutah sectional. Once you get out of the regionals in 3A, you start making some trips, and that's what we're talking about there.
Down gets to go to the Hamilton County Regional. There's a fun trip.
Yeah. Who does? T-Town?
T-Town. They play Monday, and if they win, they would turn around and play top-seeded Fairfield in round 2. So that's quite a drive during the week, maybe a couple nights back to back, going down to Hamilton County.
Yeah,
I don't think you can't get there from here.
You can, because I made that trip to watch Newton play in a sectional once upon a time.
Okay.
Pretty big gym. It's one of those. It kind of reminds. They got a bunch of. They've got like a balcony kind of deal all the way around the gym, as I recall. Yeah, and we didn't really ever touch on it because, quite honestly, we don't know a whole lot about it. But we do know that T-Town is, playing out the rest of the season with a different coach than what they started with. Don't really have a lot of details about, what the story is there, but that is an underlying storyline. So it'd be interesting to see how they respond, to postseason volleyball, as they are kind of, refiguring things out, so to speak.
But that's new coach is Jessica Shackman is the new coach at the Dallas.
Yeah. I mean,
the JV, I think she was coaching JV or as an assistant. So
yeah, and maybe she was the junior high coach too. I think I might have read that. So yeah, I mean, good luck to her. That's not an easy situation to step into, no matter what the circumstances were. And again, we don't have any we don't have any information. Nothing ever made it. No real explanation of why that happened ever made it to any sort of publication that I saw. So, and I don't really even want to get into that, but it is a thing that's happening. So I guess, mentioning it is, it's something people should understand is going on, if nothing else, that's something the kids are dealing with. All right.
Okay.
Football time. I mean, that's going to be the meat of it.
Yeah, turn it over to you. I will say this, we had Friday, I was a bachelor. My wife was playing bunco, and our renter, Morgan Wilson, was at a cook or a wiener roast. So I just thought, I'm just going to listen to Whitey and Greg and go on my walk. I went on my second 3-mile walk of the day and just listened to you. And I thought, man, I started probably middle of the first quarter. I thought, I'll be home, you know, start of the fourth quarter. Hell, it was halftime, Whitey. That was the slowest game in the world.
Let me tell you something about that Centralia game. And first of all, Effingham won it 61-34, 61 points, not quite a school record for points in the game, which they set not that long ago. I had forgotten this, but it was in 2018. I think Dave Woltman told me they scored 64 maybe in a game. I mean, I could do a little prep work if I wanted to, but
You don't want people to start having higher expectations of our show than they already have.
Yeah, can you hear those dogs barking in the background? 64
First time ever I've heard them.
Yeah, 64 points against Muhammad in 2018. So,
Wow.
yeah, think about that. Muhammad probably could have hung 60.
They could have spread that out and, had a few points here and there, spread that out over a few years.
Yeah, now nobody is putting 64 points on Muhammad anymore. At least not
No.
unless maybe over the stretch of 3 or 4 games, they might score 64 points against Muhammad, but not
Yeah,
now.
that's no.
But anyway, 61-34. Effingham actually trailed in this game.
Yeah, 7-0.
Okay. But as soon as they got the football and scored pretty easily to answer that, I kind of said to myself, they're not going to lose this game. Like, it may not be pretty because Centralia is going to they're going to do enough on offense to keep putting points on the board. But I never had a feeling like they were going to be able to stop Effingham or stop Weldon Dunston in particular. Or,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Let me tell you something. Without being too disparaging of a bunch of high school kids, it was just one of the poorest defenses that I've ever seen in a high school game, especially for a school that big, right? Like sometimes
were you having flashbacks to flag football PE at Neoga for a second?
Man, I don't know what I was having other than having the realization that I was going to be there a long time because there were lots of points on the board and a ton of penalties. I mean, good God, they called holding on every other play. And was it there? I don't know, but like,
well, they were calling it both directions. So
no, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like Effingham was getting more calls against them than Centralia. It's just that there were 14 or 15 penalties in the first half. Okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there weren't that many in the second half. So I ask you, did the game really get cleaner in the second half? As the teams got more tired.
Maybe guys had dinner reservations and they were afraid they were going to be late.
Or did they just get sick of, again, holding on every other play? And
it was a lot.
But Effingham, again, they give up those 7 points to start with. The quarterback for Centralia, who, by the way, there was some question whether he would. I guess there wasn't a real big question whether he'd play, but he came out of their previous game. By the way, they gave up 70 points to Mount Vernon the week before. But Daryl Jones, their quarterback, left that game in the third quarter with a calf injury, according to the newspaper story I read. And so there was a little question about how healthy he would be. he looked pretty good to me. He threw a really pretty pass down the sideline on that opening possession. I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Like, he's going to do enough between the way he runs and the way he throws. Like, he's going to keep him honest. But they it was a very short kickoff. Effingham only had to go 47 yards on its opening drive, and they did that in 3 plays. And you start to understand, like, this is going to be a shootout, but I just think Effingham's defense is going to make enough plays throughout the game that we don't have to worry. And that's pretty much how it went. It was 21-7 by the end of the quarter. It was 41-20 at halftime. And again, it was in control, but it was always a little out of control too, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Well, yeah, and it was a case where they had the athletes. They were, when they scored, a lot of times it was quick, big strikes or short drives. So
But
you couldn't all of a sudden follow a Centralia score with a turnover, because then you get them interested again.
Well, and that was one thing Centralia did. They fumbled on their next possession after Effingham tied it, on what appeared to be just a botched transition between a botched handoff. I guess, like, that's what they were trying to do, or a shovel pass or something. I don't know, but that immediately led to another Effingham touchdown, and they never trailed again. And I'm really burying the lead here, because Weldon Dunston scored 6 touchdowns in that game. I mean,
Yeah.
really,
Tied school record.
yeah, tied the school record. Pretty rarefied air there. Phil Freemuth, Nick Jones a couple of times, and Zach Miller.
Yeah.
6 touchdowns. And if Brett didn't want to, if he wanted to keep his foot on the gas, he could have gotten him another one, but at that point, and
yeah, but you also get to the point you don't need him to step on a kid's foot and get a high ankle sprain.
Well, and that's what he said. He's like, how does it look to get a guy hurt chasing records, in a game that you're going to win, and know that you're going to be playing the next week. So yeah, I'm not. And Weldon was, by my count, 9 yards short of the school record for
Grant Johnson's 310. Yeah.
Yep. And I wasn't sure how close I was, but I did look at Effingham's Max Preps stats, and they had him at 300, so we were about right there,
within a yard. Yeah.
Yep. So one of the best individual performances that an Effingham offensive player has ever put together. And again, like, it wasn't. I have already run down Centralia's defense a little bit, but you still got to go out there and do it. You still got to take 30 to 40 carries and be productive, and still be having that burst late in the game that you did early, and hold on to the ball and do all that stuff. I mean, it's I don't care how vulnerable the defense is, like, it's still an accomplishment. Like, if it was easy, it would happen all the time, and it doesn't. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially in some of those days with the Apollo, there were a handful of teams that back in the day just had a little. I mean, that's why they're not there anymore, because they had trouble competing, stopping guys like that. So
yeah, and your Apollo got 5 teams in the playoffs, man. That's pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, this Apollo did. Mattoon's the only team that didn't get in. Taylorville snuck in, and we'll get to that in a second. But Taylorville, despite the fact that they only won one league game all year long, they played an advantageous enough non-conference schedule to get themselves in. Is that diplomatic?
That's fair.
A few more things to touch on with the game Friday night. Gage Gillum threw for as many yards as he probably has all season. I think he got up over 200. I'm pretty sure he did. And there was some run after catch stuff, but I thought he threw a couple of really nice balls too. Got a lot of guys involved. Hunter Holland got himself a touchdown, which was nice. It's always fun to see a kid get that varsity touchdown that he's never gotten before. Uh, I'm looking up I'm looking up the passing stats because I want to make sure I don't shortchange Gage Gillum. Yeah, 11 of 13 for 210 yards and a couple of scores. Andrew Lutz got a touchdown. Brody Belcher had probably his best receiving game as a varsity player. He had 4 catches for 76 yards. He caught a touchdown, his second of the year. Uh, Hunter Reed caught 3 more passes. So in the last 2 weeks, he's caught 7 balls, and that's been big for them. He was a very big part of the Mount Zion win a couple games ago, a week ago, basically, and they're going to need that again when they, spoiler alert, play Mount Zion again.
Yep.
But I thought that it was a good confidence building game for Gage Gillum. You know, the passing yardage hasn't always been there for him. Sometimes the opportunities just haven't been there for him. And even with a kid running for 300 yards, you know, they still found time for him to throw the ball. Effingham had 580 yards of total offense, and Centralia had 405. So they're almost 1,000 yards between the two teams in that game. Just ridiculous numbers. Hart's averaged more than 7 yards per rushing attempt in that game. I mean, that's going to get it done most of the time. Looking to see what else I want to mention here from that game. Kind of looking over the stats again. 14 penalties in the first half, only 4 in the second between the two teams. You know, they just really cleaned it up. It wasn't because they just quit calling stuff. It was because
Right.
teams just made a concerted effort to play it cleaner. I'm sure that's how it worked. That's 2 weeks in a row that I've found myself frustrated with that kind of stuff. And I really try. I don't want to be that way because I have heard broadcasters that like talk about officiating too much, and it's very annoying to listen to. But usually they're doing it because they think that the team that they're wanting to win is getting cheated by it somehow. And that's not where I've been at all, because in both situations, Effingham was going to win the game, right? It's just, I don't know. Anyway, I couldn't officiate a football game either, so they could always just tell me to shut my trap. So Effingham wins. The game does take a long time to play, but they get the win, and they get to 5-4. That gets them playoff eligible, and they make the 4A field on playoff points. And get, Mike, I think, about as good of a draw as you could possibly get as a 5-4 team getting into the playoffs. They get a Mount Zion team that they just beat. You know, I mean, not only do you not have to do any crazy travel, but you get to play a team that you've already been able to beat once this year. I mean, you know, you look at last year, 5-4 got you a trip to Rochester for a pretty one-sided game. This time
Well,
around,
it's the dreaded 12-5 matchup, like a tournament we all love in March. And I went back. I had a memory come up on Facebook. I think my son's sophomore year. Effingham drew Mount Zion in the playoffs. Effingham had already beaten Mount Zion.
yeah,
Been about what?
I
12?
remember this.
Well, it had been fall of 12. And Grant Johnson was injured.
Yep.
Grant tried to play. I think he ran 2 plays. He just couldn't go. And then Mount Zion beat him. So, but Mount Zion's record was better because Mount Zion hosted. I think there's a lot of good factors there. I don't think it's a game where, you know, sometimes you'll see in a basketball regional where someone's beaten someone and they take them for granted.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen coaches take people for granted too in basketball.
Yeah.
And that's something, you know, not going to happen with the Hearts. You know, I guarantee you, Coach Hefner and his staff will be all over that, as well they should be.
Sure.
And I did see the Trimble kid from Mount Zion today got offered a scholarship at the University of Illinois to play football.
Did he?
Yeah, I saw that today.
The talk at the time when Mount Zion came to Effingham, And that's part of it too. I don't know how much that matters to the kids really, but the other game was here in Effingham, and this game will be at Mount Zion will host. Of course, they'll be the home team. That
Sure.
makes a little difference, I suppose. But the talk going into that game was that Iowa had shown some interest in him, which
Hmm.
I didn't know Iowa actually recruited offensive players. I thought they just grabbed guys off the street and
Just grab linemen
yeah.
and linebackers. But no, it's that. I mean, that's quite a quite a feather in the young man's cap to have a Power Five conference offer you a scholarship, and you've got the Fagan kid from
Yeah.
Atwood, and and then so he's
And,
running well.
and
He's getting a lot of praise by the media on the games they're doing.
Well, and I guess they finally decided to like use the Fagan kid a little bit yesterday. I was not able to
Well, he's
watch.
played the last two games. He's ran a lot,
Has he?
and he just well, they're at the time their main defensive threat in the line was ejected for targeting, which when you use the crown of your helmet on someone's chin, it's going to happen. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
hated to see it, but I'm sorry, it was painful. And I had somebody on Facebook telling me it was a horrible call, and I said, well, you need to watch the replay because I understand you're on the sidelines there and you're seeing it in person, and it happened right in front of you. However, don't look with your heart, look with your head and watch the replay, and it's a painfully obvious call. So
Yeah.
I hated to see it because I do believe it was a factor in the outcome of that game. It kind of their defense lost its swagger that it kind of had going.
Yeah.
But the Hearts of Mount Zion, I mean, I think it's. I would just wonder if Coach Hefner and his staff are happy with that draw because yeah, you don't. I mean, your game prep, you've already got everything. You know what kind of your approaches, the personnel, but on the other hand, they know you, they know what you did last time to throw them off their game. Will they, you know, and we always talk about Brett Hefner's halftime adjustments, and he seems to be doing a pretty good job of that. Um, it'll just be interesting to see.
I
Um,
mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I know anything about a lot of these other teams, but I mean, if you look at, yeah, it's the 5-12 game. You could have ended up as a 13 playing Breeze Central, and that's who it's Breeze Central and Cahokia. That's who's playing the 4-13 game. So Effingham would get the winner of that if they could get through the first round here. Murfreesboro is the 2 on in the South here, or on this half of the bracket anyway. And Kewanee is the number 3. Boy, Brett was talking about the potential people that Effingham could face during his post game interview at
right.
Centralia, and he mentioned a bunch of schools, and Kewanee was the one I heard, and I was like, I don't even know anything about Kewanee, but please God no, like spending 3 hours or whatever each way to go play a playoff game on a Saturday, like just
And I'm
feels,
sure there's a lot of two-lane road.
man. I don't know. I think you're right. Like, I think that there's probably from a coach's perspective, like you're not
Catch
thinking.
20. It's a catch 22. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of positives with the draw, but there's also negatives with it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
you're not going to be able to just go and do the same things that you did the first time around to beat them and do it again. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
you're gonna.
This is when the game of chess starts.
Yep.
Okay, they know what you did, so they may wait until you do it to start countering it, or they may just come out and counter it
But
immediately. And then if you're not doing,
but but
it's the back and forth.
but I will say that the thing that Effingham did in that game against Mount Zion that really put them in the driver's seat was it wasn't like some quirky strategy that they did. They just sort of dominated it in the
They
trenches.
controlled the line of scrimmage. Yeah, they
And
controlled the line of scrimmage pretty much both directions. Um, Obviously, it's going to be a case where you have to again control their passing game and keep Mr. Jacobs from going crazy
Yeah.
running the ball against you.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, and again, it all starts on the line doing that, right? It's giving yourself the ability to do the things in coverage that you want to prevent the big plays from happening, but have to be able to win those individual matchups down in the muck in order to do that other stuff. So, that's the challenge that's going to be facing them. And you're going to know the Mount Zion is going to be, they're going to be up for you. They don't want
Well,
to,
they're going to have a major chip on their shoulder.
right. And if their
The
coaches,
last thing Mount Zion's coach is going to say when they leave the locker room is, 21-14 or
yeah,
whatever the score
I
was.
mean, if they're doing their job, yeah, they're going to
Yeah.
burn that
So,
in their heads.
yeah, I'll have you and Mr. Sapp on the radio at work listening to you.
And that is going to be on Saturday. We don't know. I know that much. It's going to be a Saturday game. They've
1 or 2 o'clock. That's usually when they tee it up.
yeah, there's something about ACT testing going on that is causing some that's why they haven't said yet.
Angst.
But we do know for certain that it will be sometime Saturday. You could play them on Friday. Casey and Cumberland are going to play a playoff game on Friday, which I thought that was a kind of a tough draw for Cumberland. It's an interesting matchup in terms of proximity and familiarity, but Casey is back to being Casey, and that's going to be a tough one for Cumberland. But you mentioned the Apollo getting 5 teams in, and most of them in 4A. Taylorville snuck in with a 5-4 record, and they're the 15 seed. They're not getting any favors, but they're going to play Murfreesboro. They're going to go to Murfreesboro. That's an 8-1 team. That's the other thing, by the way. Rochester was the only 9-0 team in 4A. Everybody else has at least a loss. Just looking at these brackets. Lincoln no longer in the Apollo, but they managed to get into the playoff field. They're 5-4, and that's who
They play Rochester, don't
that's
they?
who
Hey,
Rochester
welcome
plays.
to the
They're
playoff.
Lincoln, the Lambs to slaughter this year. They're going to be that first round tune-up for Rochester.
They got a decent running back, I believe.
Yep. Let's see. And then obviously we know where Mount Zion is, which leaves Charleston, and they are going to play Freeburg. That's a 7-10 game. Charleston at 7-2 got a 7 seed out of the deal. And they're going to play a 6-3 Freeburg. So that's kind of a coin flip game, really, but Charleston does get to host it. So that's nice for them. It's been a while since Charleston made the playoffs. If I was better at this, I would be able to tell you exactly when, but it's probably been about 10 years. And
too much planning, Whitey. We don't want to go there.
No, well, and I've been in Casey watching 8-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds play baseball today, and it's just it fries the brain after 12 innings. So best of luck to Charleston, I guess, but that does seem like a bit of a toss up. And again, if they win, they get to play probably Murfreesboro in the second round. That's the thing about Effingham. Like you look at the next round, Breeze Central or Cahokia. Neither one of those would, and that's
Breeze Central beat Modern Day, correct?
Did they? Modern Day, by the way, Mount Zion really thumped them
Yes,
Friday night too. So that kind of surprised me a little bit because obviously Modern Day came to our place and stole our lunch money and left us with a few bruises. But Mount Zion handled them. I mean, beat them.
Well, and different approach. And Modern Day kind of sometimes thinks they can do what they want to do against anyone, both on offense and defense, and get Mount Zion on a roll offensively like they can. They got all those big fast receivers and they're good. And Modern Day was missing a couple kids. I found out today they had a couple kids out on offense and defense. I found that out yesterday. Little disciplinary issue at school, so a couple kids got a 1-game suspension.
So anyway, I just want to reiterate that really, I mean, just in terms of, leaving out the game within the game stuff you're talking about, for a 5-4 team, to get
I
get
think
this.
it's a great draw when you just look at that.
Yeah, I mean, about as good as you can hope for. I
Right.
mean, 5-4 teams. Nobody's trying to do them any favors, right? Like they're just the happy to be there guys. But this gives you a real chance to get yourself a playoff win. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I would never be so bold as to make that sort of a prediction. But I think it can happen. I think it's certainly possible. I mean, why wouldn't it be possible? I already beat them once this year. You gotta believe, and that's got to give your kids some confidence. But you don't. That's a fine line, right? Like you want the confidence, but you don't want the overconfidence. And that's going to be the battle that the coaching staff is going to be fighting uh, all this weekend, and probably making sure they understand that, yeah, you put up some big numbers this last week, but it's going to be back to some more
Yeah, and I don't
competitive
expect you're going to
defense.
see Effingham come in thinking, "Oh God, we can hang a 60 burger on somebody." That's not the case. Those kids know they're in for a battle, but they know they're in for a winnable battle.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. The only thing that concerns me a little bit, of course, being at Mount Zion, is that then you start looking at the weather, because we're going to be sitting outside, and the Saturday forecast is looking spotty, I would say. Still,
Saturday is 63 high, chance of showers at times. Righty, at times.
well, I need to. I mean, we don't with that. So there's uncertainty there's two different times that are uncertainty there. When's it going to be raining, and when's the game going to take place?
Hey, this is like a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah, I ought to whack him, then maybe he'd go away. All right, this is Derek White. He's making his cameo on the show, and then he's going to politely let me finish and not get in the shot anymore. Okay. Okay. All right. Bye. So I don't know. I guess we're kind of about out of stuff to talk about anyway. You know, good luck to the Hearts. I wish them well. I'd love to still be doing games into November. That's a
Yeah.
distinct possibility, but it's going to be a battle.
You
But
and
it's
Sap
nice to
could be
be there.
doing football, and me and Matt could be doing basketball.
Yeah, I mean basketball's about a
Coming.
month
It's
away,
coming,
right?
Whitey. It's coming.
Yep. I No, Derek, no. Get Come on. We're gonna have to stop just because I'm apparently running out of cooperation. I mean, it's 8:41 at night. He should be in bed anyway. Um, you already kind of hit on Illinois getting beat by Wisconsin. I didn't watch it.
Yeah,
Don't really
I
have any.
haven't been watching. I watched a little baseball, not much. I started to stay awake. I watched the Bears for a little bit today before I fell asleep. That
Well, keeping track of the
quarterback
scores.
did okay, Whitey.
Yeah, it's gonna be, that's gonna
Hey,
it's gonna get
I'd like
everybody
to
going.
hear all the smart people on talk radio on the score this week. Trade Justin Fields. I don't care. Get a 7th round pick for him, and then he'll go somewhere else and become a stud. And
Well,
the
I think
Bears will
that's
get nothing for it. Bears will end up with Mr. Irrelevant. So they
uh
won 2 in a row with
no,
this kid at quarterback. Oh,
they
that's right.
lost last week. He played part of the game. Bajent did, after
Right.
Fields got hurt, but they didn't win that game.
Threw a lot of short passes today, what I saw.
Well, and let me tell you something. The Raiders were also playing a second and looked like maybe a third string quarterback a little bit, because
Yeah.
Garoppolo's not ready to go. And the Raiders are not good. Okay. So
Right.
don't get too excited, people.
Oh, there's Bears fans getting Super Bowl tickets, Whitey. I'm just telling you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the rest of that division just stinks out loud, besides the Lions, and even the Lions got their butts
They
kicked.
got pummeled today.
So that's the extent of my knowledge. I did not actually, again, as already stated, I did not get to watch any of that. I was just keeping track of what my fantasy guys were doing. On my first place fantasy team, by the way.
Wow.
We're deep enough in. I feel like I can brag about it.
I think you win some money and take me out for lunch.
we'll see. I mean, it's a pretty substantial
Only
amount of
fair.
money if I win this league. So
Attaboy. All right, we got anything else?
nope, because my kid is losing his mind over there.
Hey,
So
you know what? Next Sunday's show, you know what that is?
uh number 88.
But you know what else that is for girls basketball?
First
That's
day of practice.
Christmas Eve. That's Christmas Eve.
Oh, first day of practice is the next
First
day.
day of practice is the 30th.
Yep. Yeah, coming right up, man. I've junior high girls season. I've already heard about teams having their conference tournaments and stuff. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah, oh
a
yeah,
very
it goes.
truncated deal, but
That's if you want to coach. That's a good one to coach because it's a short season.
well, yeah, but you run into things where the same people coach the high school and the junior high, and then there is a little bit of overlap there where
Yeah,
it's kind of kind of messy.
it's fuzzy.
You want to have that. I understand wanting to have that control, like have that oversight of your entire program, but also
Continuity.
continuity. That's right. But also like your brain is fried by March. You know,
Hmm.
you've basically been going every day since the beginning of since the beginning of October. So
Oh yeah.
all right,
All right.
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think probably either of the teams I wanted to come out of the baseball league championship series. It's not looking good for either one of them. I don't think it's looking like a Philadelphia Houston rematch in the World Series, which appeals to me very very little. But you get what you get.
I won't watch much of it because I'm usually in bed by 9 o'clock. I'm elderly, Whitey.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Like you know, I'm you always get a little bitter when your team washes out, right? Like it's hard to stomach after that when
Yeah.
you watch a team for
Tell me
six
about it.
months, then they just
We washed out about May 3rd.
well, that's true. You've had a long time to get your mind wrapped around it this year, but
Yeah, I'm waiting on all these robust free agents. The Cardinals are not. Oh, we couldn't get him. We weren't going to go that much. And they'll get Jamie Moyer. He's probably a free agent this year. We'll probably bring him off for a hurrah year.
who
Jamie Moyer. I'm sure Michael Walker will be a free agent. I think his contract was up with San Diego, so we'll bring him back for sentimental reasons. We'll trade for guys that are injured. Um, Tyler O'Neill will be dealt, and Dylan Carlson will be dealt, and one of them will become an all-star next year. I'm just telling you, that's what's going to happen.
I don't know. You haven't you. I think building trying to address a team's needs and free agency is becoming less and less realistic anyway, just because of the way.
I know. I'm just telling you, but there's some pitchers that are available, but it's no, you're not going to get all of them. You're not going to get Sonny Gray. You're not going to get who's the other one linked with them all the time.
Sonny Gray's really good though.
Yeah, but you're not going to get him. And Jordan and Montgomery's not going to come back. They think that's an automatic. So
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. They got a lot of holes to fill. But
yeah,
I was just telling, that's something Greg and I talked a little bit. You get an hour drive each way to go to these football games, and you talk about a lot of things. And
an hour. It's not an hour to Centralia.
it was about an hour. I don't know.
45, maybe 50 minutes. Come on. I've ridden with Sap.
He's yeah, so uh he's not in it to make time. Uh he's conscientious of the rules of the road, which is good. He's never going to get a speeding ticket. I'm in constant peril of costing my family whatever it costs to get a ticket now. I haven't actually had one in a while, so I'm not sure, but
I just smile, show my dimples, and say, "Hello, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir."
what was I saying? Anyway, oh yeah, that's right. We kind of decided between two of us that the Cardinals had a prolonged fallow period that neither one of us would complain about it that much.
Huh?
We
See,
wouldn't
thanks.
we wouldn't shed a tear. You know,
Okay.
it'd be good for that good for the fan base to kind of make sure they don't take success for granted. So Look at
We
it. Look at
didn't.
it like that. Look at it like it's positive for you. It's a positive for you.
Yeah, we didn't take it for granted.
Okay. It's time to be done. I'm really bullshit.
We're good.
So
We're good.
all right. Hey, hopefully we got a playoff win to talk about a week from tonight. But
It'll be exciting.
no matter what, we will have a playoff game to discuss. So that'll be on the table and some hopefully some regional. I mean, it'd be a very weird thing not to have a couple of local regional champions come out of volleyball and there's cross country and all that. So
Cross country kids who could be going to state, so we should have things to talk about next week.
all right, Mike. Well then I guess until then, we will we'll talk to you later.
Hey, Wani.
All right, later.